Hello, everyone, and welcome to the EV Geek podcast, where we discuss all things EV. I'm your host, Joel, and on today's episode, I am excited to welcome Jeff Blake from the YouTube channel, Technically Jeff, to the podcast. Jeff will be sharing his insights on electric vehicles, as well as his personal experience of owning the Kia EV6. Thanks again for joining us, and without further ado, let's welcome Jeff Blake to the podcast. I'm thrilled to have Jeff Blake from the Technically Jeff YouTube channel on the podcast today. Jeff, before we dive deep into your EV ownership experience, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got into the EV landscape?
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on here. I've actually been in EVs for a while. I started with some plug-in hybrids. I had a Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid. Then I got a Ford Fusion plug-in hybrid. And after having those for a couple of years, I thought, I feel like I can make an EV work. So I got a Nero EV, and I had that for a year. And then the EV6 came out, and I thought, wow, the EV6 has a lot of nice upgrades over the Nero in a lot of ways. So I talked to my wife and tried my best to sell her on it, and then got my first EV6, and now I'm on my second EV6. Got the GT now, and yeah, I'm a big fan of EVs. I think they come with a lot of benefits. I've always been a car guy, and I think there's a lot of things that EVs provide benefit-wise with regards to features, but also performance that I think a lot of people don't necessarily take into account or give EVs proper credit for.
So true. So my wife is also a EV6 owner as well. She has the Win model, and for her, she has always just been a Kia fan. She's owned Tellurides. You know, as soon as this came out, she saw the Super Bowl ad for the EV6. She's like, I gotta have it. I gotta have it. So,
Yeah.
you know, is the Hyundai Kia group something you've always been attracted to in EVs as compared to, like, you know, Tesla, Rivian, and all the other manufacturers out there?
I've been a fan of them. I like Hyundais and Kias in general, just for their value proposition. They seem to provide a lot of features for the money. When I was researching EVs, I knew I wanted to get something that was maybe like a small SUV size or something like that had some decent performance. And I was looking at different options at the time. When I was debating after my Nero getting the EV6, I was also looking at the ID4. I was looking at the Mustang Mach-E, Tesla Model Y, and when I got my first EV6 was in April of 2022, which was like the peak of everything. So costs were really high. I know people at the time were spending $10,000 over MSRP on EV6s, and Tesla Model Ys were very expensive at the time. And when it came down to it, for the features that you get with the EV6 and the performance and the charging speeds, I thought it was going to be the best option. There's also some things that the EV6 has that other manufacturers don't have, like V2L, which I'm a huge fan of, and I think it's completely underutilized. I don't think people talk about it enough because it is so nice to have. But yeah, that's the main reason I went with the EV6. And I was looking at the Ioniq 5 too, but I like the EV6 aesthetically more than the Ioniq 5. I think it's more of a sporty looking vehicle.
Yeah, so you got yours right around the same time we got ours. I think the Super Bowl was in February, and that's when my wife saw the ad, and it was like end of February, beginning of March, and that's when we got ours. And I think she paid I think I got them down to like $4,000 over MSRP. They wouldn't have charged me $8,000. I think I got them down to about $4,000. So once because they really wanted my Telluride, because at that time everyone wanted cars. And they're like, I have 3 people in a parking lot right now who want your Telluride. So yeah, pretty cool. So share your first impression. So let's talk about 2 driving impressions. So share your first impression kind of with your original EV6, and then when you traded that in, because it's going to be a huge different driving impression, and then getting your EV6.
Yeah, so my first one was the EV6 Wind all-wheel drive, and it was definitely quick. I have a Draggy, and I've tested 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds with it. Quarter mile was about 13 seconds flat, so it's definitely a quick car. Handled well. I did some different modifications to it. I installed springs and had different wheels and tires and things like that on it. But it drove well, handled well, was quick, and I had a blast with it. I liked driving it every day. I never got tired of it, even having it for 2 years before this one, which is rare for me because I'm fairly young and I've had probably 25 vehicles in my lifetime. So I change vehicles fairly often. And to have a vehicle for 2 years and not be tired of it my wife would say that says something about the vehicle.
So what kind of key differences do you see? Like if someone were to look at an EV6, kind of like the Wind, the all-wheel drive, the wheel-wheel drive, or the GT, what are some differences they're going to notice right off the bat?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest ones are going to be the range.
Okay.
That's going to be the biggest change. So the rear-wheel drive models get the most range. The standard all-wheel drive isn't that much lower than the rear-wheel drive models. My Wind all-wheel drive, I would average in the mid to high 200s on a full charge. And I had different wheels, which were not nearly as aerodynamic as the factory wheels. So that's definitely solid when it comes to range. But the EV6 GT, I'd say, is for me, about 50 miles less on a full charge. And that's due to the more powerful motors, much less aerodynamic wheels, and that type of thing. But that's going to be the biggest change, I would say. The GT, outside of the other EV6 models, they all have basically the same seats and same interior. The GT has, and you can kind of see it beside me here and behind me,
has those cool seats.
Sports seats.
Yep.
Yeah, these are very comfortable sports seats. They provide a lot of side bolsters. They hold you in good in the turns, which is good. They are manual, which isn't ideal, but if you can get past that. I thought it was going to be a bigger deal for me than it actually is, because my wife does drive my car, but it's fairly quick to switch it back to my driving position. So not too bad there. The GT also does have some additional things that the other models don't have when it comes to like drive modes. So the GT has electronically adjustable dampers, which means that you can make it stiffer or softer as you're driving. And it has a GT mode, which ups the power. And it also has a My Drive mode, which the other EV6s don't have. And you can customize everything. So you can customize the stiffness of the dampers, you can customize the power, you can customize the traction control, stability control, the steering, all that independently in the My Drive mode to put it exactly how you want it, which I like. I drive in My Drive mode fairly often, actually. But the biggest thing is going to be the power. Other than range, power is crucial to talk about when it comes to the EV6 GT, because for me, I even put out a video a while back on why I chose the EV6 Wind over the GT line and the GT. And I talked about the EV6 Wind all-wheel drive was quick, 0 to 60, 4.5 seconds. That's solid. But coming into the EV6 GT, it's a very significant difference that you don't realize until you're actually in the car. And I've talked about this with some people. The 0 to 60 is just over a second quicker in the EV6 GT, but the 0 to 100 time, it goes from being basically 13 seconds in the regular all-wheel drive down to below 8 seconds in the EV6 GT. So it's 5 seconds faster going 0 to 100, which is substantial, especially like when you're merging on the highway. That additional power, you really can feel that when you go to pass somebody, and it's nice and it's addicting. I like it a lot.
So road tripping, is this a car you have taken on road trips or not? And because I'm wondering how those seats hold up on a longer road trip.
Yeah, so the only road trip I've done so far, I've had this car for about 5 months right now. Sorry, I was just looking at the calendar there. I've had it for about 5 months, and the only road trip I did was when I brought it home. So I got a phenomenal deal from a dealership in New Jersey, and I'm in Virginia. So I drove my previous EV6 up to New Jersey, traded it in, and then drove home. And I think it was about a 5.5 hour drive home. And the seats were actually pretty comfortable. I was very pleasantly surprised. Having had vehicles in the past that had sports seats, they weren't always the most comfortable for long road trips, but these are solid. They're comfortable. They can be adjusted to be comfortable. The material is comfortable. One thing that the EV6 GT has that or doesn't have that the other ones have is it doesn't have cooled seats. And I was thinking like in the summer that wouldn't necessarily be a good thing, but with this material, it's kind of an Alcantara material in the middle. It doesn't really get that hot, which is nice. And that was also a surprise. I know I've heard a lot of people talk about that's a big downgrade going from the regular one to the GT to not have the ventilated seats, but I've had no issues at all through the summer, and it's been over 100 degrees many days this summer. So
Welcome to the South. That's right. So yeah, and what some people don't understand about Kia, and I did a little video on this yesterday, haven't posted it yet, is its charging curve. I mean, yesterday I was at a supercharger. I was at 70% state of charge. I was still ripping 184 kilowatts, 183 kilowatts. And my Tesla, I'm probably below 100 at that point. I'm probably 70, 80 kilowatts at that point. So kind of explain to everyone the charging curve and how Kia is just able to do that so well.
Yeah, the charging curve is, I think, one of the biggest benefits for the Hyundai and Kia vehicles is their charging curve. It goes up very quickly, very high voltage. That's the biggest benefit that the EGMP vehicles have, the Hyundai and Kia vehicles, is that they're built off of 800 volt architecture, so they can really ramp up the charge rate, and then it holds that curve for a long period of time. I've done a few different charging tests in my EV6, also in EV9, which is a similar charging curve as well. And it ramps up and it holds it up until about 60% state of charge, and then that's when it slowly starts to taper off. But that's a big difference, like you said, compared to like Tesla, Lucid, most other manufacturers. It goes up very high and then it tapers off fairly quickly, whereas these vehicles can really keep it going for a long time. In my last EV6, I hit 247 kilowatts in that EV6, which was the highest I had ever hit. I had tested on 150 kilowatt chargers. I was actually pulling 175-ish, but I did a 15 to 90% state of charge test, and it was super fast. I think it was like 25 minutes on a 150 kilowatt charger to go from 15 to 90%. And that's just incredible. And I think that's something that when I tell people, because I talk to people about my car all the time, people ask me questions about it. And I think one of the biggest barriers that people have to EVs is they think it takes forever to charge them. And that's a huge misconception, especially with these types of vehicles. When I tell them, if I'm on a road trip, I stop maybe every 150 miles or so for about 15 minutes. They're like, what? They think it's going to take hours on a road trip to stop, when in reality, that's just not the case.
Yeah, I noticed with taking my wife's EV6 on road trips, it's getting to a point now, traveling with two kids, that the car is now usually done before we are. I mean, just plugging it in at an EA station, which are usually in Walmart, and running into a Walmart, going to the bathroom, getting a snack, getting some chips and drink, and coming back out. We're usually rushing because that has taken 20, 25 minutes. I'm like, all right, y'all, it's been 18 minutes. We need to hurry up and get back. So that's one of the benefits that I love. That's on the Hyundai EGMP platform is that charging curve. So we've heard some things that you really like about your car. So if you could pick up the phone right now and call Kia America and say, "Here, these are the things you need to fix or improve on in the vehicle," what do you think they would be?
I would say the biggest thing that I think that Kia needs to do and Hyundai needs to do is software. So unfortunately, and I just put out a recent video on this, their software updates are very far and few between, unfortunately, and they don't come with a lot of changes. So when you see Teslas and Rivians and even Ford, legacy automaker like Ford is putting out regular updates, the fact that Kia and Hyundai do updates biannually, and even then sometimes, like this past update was delayed 3 months and came with no real significant changes. That's just, in my opinion, that's unacceptable. I think with these types of vehicles, the people that purchase these vehicles are more likely to be interested in tech and having new things and that type of thing. And the fact that it's still the same basic infotainment system, same basic layout, same basic gauges, and there haven't really been any new features. Like the fact that we don't have wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay yet is ridiculous. And I know that we're on the previous generation of infotainment system. We have the standard 5W infotainment system, and Kia and Hyundai came out with the CCNZ platform, which is newer and has wireless Android Auto and has more functionality. But it just doesn't seem like they're prioritizing the early adopters or the first people to get these vehicles. And I don't like that for the community. I think that I know a lot of people are very frustrated that own these vehicles, because I mean, there are people now buying EV6s right now, and for us to not have meaningful software updates is pretty.
Yeah, like I said, we've owned our EV6 for 2.5 years now, and I've gotten one over-the-air update to work, and it took forever. I mean, it only did it when the car was driving, and it took probably a week, the whole thing to download. I just updated my Tesla today. It took 15 minutes, and I know exactly what's in there. The update we did last year, I don't know what was new and what wasn't new. So like you said, it's nothing. There's no dramatic changes and things like that. Now I have taken it in for other software updates and updates as well. But like I said, there is no, that would be I would totally agree with you. And I've said it on previous podcasts too, on this channel, is that Kia needs to kind of work on their tech. It's just a little clunky and things like that. So totally agree with you.
I agree.
Yep.
And I think, so since they are moving to the CCNC platform, that'll mean that in those vehicles, they can do full over-the-air updates, so they can update vehicle systems and make updates like that they can't do in the current generation, which is kind of unfortunate. But and I'm sure you've seen this too with your EV6, with the current or the earlier versions of the EV6, since it's getting redesigned, they had a lot of kinks they had to work out. So there have been numerous recalls and updates and ICCU issues and things that people have had to bring their vehicles into service for, which, I mean, when you have a new vehicle, some of that is going to be understandable, but the fact that it wasn't built from the ground up to have that full over-the-air update functionality isn't ideal. But it seems like they have made a lot of progress there. I haven't really seen as many issues over the past 6 months as I did during the first year or so. But I am excited for the new EV6 that's coming out, the 2025. I was just talking to one of the guys at Kia corporate the other day about it, and he was saying how he thinks I'm going to be really excited for the changes that they have coming down the road. So I'll be excited to test one out.
I personally, our vehicle, we did have issues with the 12 volt and ICC. Did you have any of those issues in your car, or were you able to steer clear of those?
I was able to steer clear. One of the things I got early on was I had one of the companies that I've worked with is OMU. They have 12 volt batteries. They sell a LiFePO4 battery, and I had that in my previous EV6. I have it in my new one. Before I replaced the 12 volt battery, I used to see the orange light on the dash that indicated that it was charging. I used to see that at least once a week. But once I got the OMU battery, I literally never saw it again. And I never had any issues with it. But I know a lot of people had issues with their ICCU, and a lot of people had issues with failing 12 volt batteries, unfortunately. But it seems like they have ironed that out, at least over the past several months. I haven't seen nearly as many issues from people, so that's a plus at least.
Yeah, we took ours in, they replaced our battery, and ever since then, and we went in for the ICCU update. Ever since then, we haven't had any issues. But I totally agree with you. I don't see my orange light coming on as much as I used to anymore. In fact, I probably never notice it come on anymore. So, but usually before that issue, I would see it. If the car wasn't plugged in and charging, I would see it almost 2, 3, 4 times a week. I'd come out to the garage early in the morning or late at night, and that orange light, what would be on. So thinking about the EV market in general, what do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities for the EV market moving forward?
I'd say probably one of the biggest ones, like I was saying earlier, is that the misunderstandings around charging times and how charging works and that type of thing. Being that I do have a YouTube channel and a Facebook page, sometimes I post things that whatever algorithm, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or what have you, sometimes they'll push it out to a fairly large group of people, and I'll get a lot of comments from people who are very negative, and they're just very uninformed on a lot of things. Sometimes I'll make videos just to kind of stir some things up. I did a video with my last EV6 where I took a video of me basically saying how is EV charging really inconvenient, and then I had a video of me just plugging my car in at home and saying, now I go inside and go to bed. Seems pretty convenient to me. And there was a lot of comments on, I think I had over 1,000 comments in like 2 days on that one video on Facebook. And it was a lot of people who were so misinformed. And I think people just don't realize that the vast majority of charging happens at your house. And it is more convenient. Like, I don't know a single person that's had an EV that says they miss going to the gas station. Like, it is so much more convenient when I have to take my wife's car. Hers is even a plug-in hybrid, but when I do have to take it to the gas station, it's like, I don't have to go to the gas station and plug in and deal with that. But even, like I said, most charging happens at home. People don't realize that. People don't realize that you go to sleep and you wake up with a full charge. People don't realize that on road trips, if you have a vehicle like this, you can fully charge it in a fairly short amount of time. And even then, that only really impacts you on road trips. And how often are people road tripping? So I think that's the biggest thing that I see is just educating people on how charging works, how convenient it actually is, and just the overall benefits of it. I think too. I think a lot of people, and something I've had a lot of people ask me why, because I used to be really big into performance vehicles. I've had V8s, I've had boosted cars, all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, a bunch of different vehicles. And people have asked me why I switched to an EV. And people don't realize these are also performance vehicles, but they're practical. So like the EV6 has a really long wheelbase. So I have more legroom in my rear seats than a lot of people have in their front seats because of the fact that EVs allow this. There's a lot of storage room in the back. There's, like I said, the V2L functionality is a big thing. I have another one of the companies I worked with, Nature's Generator, provided me a transfer switch to install and test at my house because they didn't know for sure if it was actually going to be able to work. And now a lot of people have seen that you can literally power your house with an EV6. I have a 12 circuit one now, and I can power my entire house because I have gas heat. I can power the furnace, power my refrigerator, power my internet, all my lights, all my switches, all the outlets in my house, smart home devices, like everything works just as it should. So if my power goes out, which it has, unfortunately, many times, I just plug in my car. Within 5 minutes, everything's back up just like it never happened. So there's just a lot of benefits that I think if we can educate just the general public on it, I think that'll really, really help a lot.
Yep. And one thing I do love about what Hyundai and Kia are doing is that they're not slowing down on what their EV plans are. You know, we've seen kind of Ford take a step back. We've kind of seen GM take a step back. Like, hey, let's kind of focus on hybrids for a little bit. Let's see what the customers want. You know, Hyundai, Kia, Genesis, they're moving forward. They're saying this is what we're coming out with. We got more cars in the pipeline, all different shapes, all different sizes, all different prices. How do you think over the next 5 to 10 years that EVs are going to impact the auto industry? Do you see, you know, some are we going to be having discussions in 5 or 10 years about some, you know, automotive, you know, legacy dealers or legacy automakers that aren't in business anymore?
I think that's going to depend. I know a lot of them have invested a lot in EVs and then they're starting to pull back. I think a lot of them invested a lot of money into some that aren't going to sell as much, if that makes sense. If you invest a lot of money in a vehicle that's really expensive, you're not going to get the mainstream buyer to get it. I think with Kia and Hyundai investing in vehicles that I think the general public is going to want, like the new Kia EV3 that's coming out, I think that's going to sell great. I think it's a great size for a lot of people. I think that's going to be awesome. The EV9 has been doing really well. I do think that the EV9 was priced a little high, but they have been doing a lot of incentives, which has helped the sales there. I know a lot of legacy manufacturers have been concerned about sales recently, like you said, with Ford and GM kind of pulling back a little bit on that. But ultimately, it's going to depend on what people end up purchasing. If people continue to purchase EVs, if overall the EV market continues to grow, I think the manufacturers are going to go there, but they're just going to look at the trends and make the determination at that point as to what they're going to do. I hope that more manufacturers start doing plug-in hybrids because I think that is going to be a good stepping stone for a lot of people. Like I said, I've had a few different ones. I had the Outlander plug-in hybrid, the Fusion plug-in hybrid. My wife right now has a Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid. We're actually looking at a Kia Sorento plug-in hybrid. And I think it's a good kind of best of both worlds for people. And I think that type of thing would really help just people in general be open to the idea of having a plug-in vehicle.
Totally agree. I think plug-in hybrids is that key to that transition. You know, you have people who are skeptic for moving from an all gas to an all electric car because it is daunting for some people. But if you have that option of having a plug-in car, like, hey, listen, I can drive, you know, 60, 80, 100 miles on the battery, and then the gas kicks in, and then I can just plug in and get some of that charged away. And I think that kind of eases people's pain into possibly moving into an all electric vehicle. All right. So before we wrap up for the day, let's talk about Technically Jeff. So Technically Jeff is your YouTube channel. It's your Facebook, your Facebook pages. So tell us a little bit about, you know, how that got started, why you thought about doing that and being involved in the YouTube creator world.
Yeah. So I started Technically Jeff when I got my first EV6, honestly. I had made videos at this point, what are we in 2024? I made videos probably 15 years ago on YouTube when I had different vehicles, and I made a little bit of income from that. And part of me getting my new EV6 and part of what I was selling to my wife was I can make some videos, maybe get a little bit of income from the YouTube and Google or what have you when they play ads, and that can help justify the additional cost because obviously the EV6 was a lot more expensive than my Nero was. So that got me started on it, but I got to thinking that I didn't want to just do necessarily one specific vehicle. So I know there are some people out there that focus on one vehicle, and that's all they do. And I didn't want to be kind of, I don't know if stuck's the right word, but I didn't want to be just all about
pony.
one thing. Right, exactly. So I thought, well, I like EVs, I like tech stuff. Maybe I'd like to be like a MKBHD one day, review a bunch of tech things and also do vehicles and stuff like that. So I thought technically Jeff would be a good name for it because tech EVs kind of go hand in hand with tech. So I started doing a bunch of videos about the EV6. Figured I could help a lot of people, help educate them on things, review different products, so people can make educated decisions about purchasing things for the vehicles. And it kind of just evolved from there. Now I do a bunch of videos about vehicles and also about various products and tech. I do a lot of different reviews on things, and it's fun. It's interesting. I get a lot of companies that reach out to me. Some of them seem kind of shady and a little weird, but sometimes I get some really nice tech to review and to take a look at. It's very interesting. I definitely encourage whoever's watching, listen, go check out some of the videos. I got a good variety of things on there. And if you have any questions about EV6 related stuff, I think I've put out over 200 videos related to the EV6 over the past couple of years. And also my website, technicallyjeff.com. I have a lot of information there. I have all the technical service bulletins there about the EV6. If people have questions, and I'm always here to help too. I have people ask me questions all the time, and I'm always glad to help and share my knowledge I've accumulated over the years.
Yep. And that's actually how I discovered your YouTube channel. I was actually researching this new service bulletin that was going to come out. I got in 2 or 3 recalls in a mail. I was like, what's going on? So I just researched it and your channel popped up like, oh my gosh. I showed my wife, I was like, hey, any question you have about your car, he can answer for you right here. This is going to be every 12-volt battery, look it up. Jeff's got a video on it. This issue.
Yep.
Jeff's got a video on it. So so it's been very helpful to me and it's been very helpful to our family as well. So yeah, and in that area, when you talked about people reaching out to you to kind of sell products, this morning I got an email from someone about darts who wanted me to review their darts and make a video about them. I'm like, I don't know how that fits into my niche here, but so I'll have to decline that option.
Yeah, I've had some really random things. I've had some cool stuff. Like I have a robot lawnmower I'm reviewing right now, which is pretty cool. I've had like litter boxes and stuff, which that fits into what I'm doing. But I've also had things like toys, certain toys that are not appropriate. I've had companies like that, and I'm like,
how do you get that from it? How do you get that from an EV channel about that? Yeah, so it's interesting. So yeah,
it's definitely very interesting.
It makes you wonder how these people find you.
Yeah, exactly. They say they're dedicated viewers of my channel, and
I guess so. Yes,
if you're dedicated, you would know that's not something that I'm going to be.
I'm not hawking those products on my channel. So yeah. So Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. You can find a link to Jeff's YouTube channel, and I'll also put a link in there to his website. I highly recommend giving him a follow. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that notification icon. Again, thank you, Jeff, for joining us today, and we will see you again on our next episode. So long, everyone.
Thank you.